bio of Eric Sloan.
All right, we'll share.
Here, there's
Okay.
ketchup.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
All right.
Is that a
So,
bribe?
Not that.
Eric is a small business owner, husband of 10 years and father of a 7-year-old. He has been a 27-year resident of Arizona. Eric has been a lifelong Republican and is currently a Republican state committeeman in Legislative District 24. What's the main city in LD 24?
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale, okay. He is a founding member of the Blue Blazers Squadron at Luke Air Force Base and is an active member of his church. Eric is dedicated to defending our families by reducing utility rates, cutting unnecessary regulations, and eliminating taxes and fees. Okay, so here is Eric Sloan. He is the candidate for Arizona Corporation Commission. One of probably how many that have filed?
I think there are 5 candidate committees open now.
And there are how many seats open?
There are 3 seats open.
Okay, 3 seats this time. Here is Eric Sloan.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. How are you doing this evening? All right, terrific. Well, I'm excited to be here tonight. This is the first time I've ever come to the Tea Party here in Payson. My name's Eric Sloan. I'm a candidate for the Arizona Corporation Commission. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. So, my mother moved us to Arizona in 1993. It was the first time since 1653 anyone in our family had lived outside the Commonwealth of Virginia. People in Virginia weren't quite sure what was going on in Arizona. You know, they thought of us as kind of like the John Wayne movies, and we're still shooting it out here. And so the reason why was because my mother came out here on vacation. So first time she had ever taken a vacation. See, my mother had she had a little bit of a drinking problem, and she got sober, and she eventually went back to school to get a degree in behavioral health therapy to help other people with drug and alcohol addictions.
Cool.
And when she graduated, she had bought a scratcher ticket. She won $1,000 on that ticket. And she took a vacation with one of her girlfriends out to Arizona. And after being here about 4 days, she called back home and said, sell everything we can. Pack whatever you can't sell. We are moving to Arizona.
Well, here in the middle of summer.
In August, yes. In August. I got out of the van, and I'll never forget, it was 1,000 degrees, and I said, I have no idea what we have done. But she did that because, at that time in Virginia, Democrats had started to take over the Commonwealth of Virginia. The opportunities for jobs had started to go away. And, she had 3 small boys. She was doing the best she could. And she wanted a better life for us. And she knew that Arizona had that opportunity for us. That there was a real opportunity that she could buy a house, literally, in the middle of a cotton field in Chandler, Arizona. I mean, literally in the middle of a cotton field. I had never seen a ditch that big. They got the big irrigation ditches. We don't have those back home. But, she knew that this was a land of opportunity where she could own a home, send her boys to good schools, save her retirement, and, give us an opportunity and a chance, right? Sadly, my mother passed on the day I graduated college. But she was 20 years sober when that happened. And I'm so grateful to her because she gave me that opportunity, right? So I went to high school here. I put myself through college. I went to Mesa Community College, and I went to ASU. I was fortunate enough to play club rugby at ASU. From there, I got a degree in justice studies because I thought I was going to go into law enforcement. I ended up getting involved in economic development work, and through that work, I met my wife, Elisa. And Elisa and I met and were married in 6 months. Yeah. And we've been married almost 12 years now. And we have a 7-year-old daughter named after my mother, Eloise Bell. So it's been quite a ride for me. I ran in 2018 for the Corporation Commission because I got really fed up with what I saw happening at the commission. You see all these rate increases coming down the pipe, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it because we're a captured rate base. And my wife and I have a business in Prescott, in Yavapai County, as well as in Scottsdale. And as I said, I do economic development work. And I candidly am worried about the direction that the commission is taking Arizona in. And I decided to run because I was worried about that, because it was an issue I knew about, it was an issue I cared deeply about, and it was an issue I could make a difference in. I ran, I had $8,000 to do voter outreach. I got 140,000 votes, and it was all just traveling the state and meeting with folks in any group that would let me speak to them. Sometimes it'd just be 3 people in a room and a cup of coffee, and we'd talk about the Corporation Commission. And because I was willing to do that, because I was willing to go and meet people and talk to them in their own communities, I got a lot of support. And I didn't know if I would run again, but last April I made the decision that I would. There are 3 seats open on the Corporation Commission that you're going to get to vote on. I have to tell you that it's very important with what is going on in Arizona that we get 3 Republicans in those seats. I would like to be one of the 3 Republicans that you elect to the Corporation Commission. I have said before, my platform is simple. I believe we need to lower utility rates. I believe we need to keep rates as low as possible. I believe we need to protect people's lives, and we need to do that in a variety of different ways. We need to have consumer protections. We need to vote no on subsidies, no on mandates that drive up the cost of utilities for no good reason. We need to take a line against these increases that have happened literally for the last 10 years. Now, I'm going to throw out some numbers to you real quick, and then I'm going to take questions. Because, I don't know, did anyone ever know Byron Banta? He was a preacher here in Payson. He was president of the Southern Baptist Association. I said, what's the key to giving a good speech? He said, no souls are saved after 20 minutes.
Not during the Q&A. Thank you, Russ.
So,
Praise the Lord.
yeah, praise the Lord. I
I
keep
can
it
do one
short.
side, you can do the other.
But so what I really want to tell you is that I'm happy to be here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the commission. There are some things that I can give very specific answers on. There are some things I cannot give specific answers on because I am not allowed to prejudge an issue before I've seen it. I'm happy to talk about the mechanics of the Corporation Commission and how it works. So with that said, thank you so much. And one thing we do need to do, I do need to talk about real quick from a campaign perspective is I need to collect about 8,000 signatures to get on the ballot. And so if you all would be willing to sign my petition tonight, that would be a big help to me. Last time I turned in about 9,400 signatures. It is. And the other thing is that I'm a clean elections candidate. And that means, oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that, Bill.
Now, there's 3 open seats on the Corporation Commission, so you can sign 3 petitions.
Yes, you can. You can sign 3 petitions. As a clean elections candidate, I need to solicit $5 from 1,800 individual Arizonans. I have made a campaign
Is
pledge.
this all you have?
Oh, no, I have more.
Okay.
We got a whole folder full.
Okay.
I see my daughter got popsicle on that one.
I was wondering if it was lipstick or popsicle.
No, it's popsicle. It was hot down in the valley, so we gave out popsicles. Well, let me, on the $5 deal, I need to collect 1,800 $5 contributions from individual Arizonans. I am not taking money from unions or PACs or special interest groups or utility companies. This is going to be a campaign that is completely for Arizonans and hopefully supported by individual Arizonans. So if you would, please, if you like what I have to say tonight and you have $5 and you'd be willing to donate to our campaign, that would be a big help to me also. With that said, let's...
Could you tell us who's on the commission now and their,
Sure. So on the commission now, Bob, the question was who's on the commission now and what's their political affiliation? There is one Democrat on the commission. She was elected in the last election. Her name is Sandra Kennedy. There is Justin Olson, who's on the commission. He's a Republican. Boyd Dunn, who is a Republican. Bob Burns, who is a Republican. Yeah. And so we have, Leah Marquez Peterson, who's also a Republican. Andy Tobin was on the board. He left the board, took a position in state government. Leah Marquez Peterson was appointed to that position. Bob Burns is termed out and cannot run for another term. And I believe Boyd Dunn is seeking re-election. And there's about 5 campaign committees that are open now for different candidates. And I hope they'll all come to see you.
why are there 3
spots?
Yeah. It's a 5-member commission, and they rotate every 4 years. They have, it's a 4-year term, so you have 2 seats come up, then you have 3 seats come up in the subsequent 2 years, and that gives them their 4-year increments. Yes, ma'am. Tell me your name, please.
Oh, I'm Pam Jackson.
I started it out.
The airhead of Congress, think of the initials, says
Jello rice pudding.
they ran out of gas. We all need to go to electric cars. It's been my experience at hurricanes, the electricity goes too. Gasoline companies compete. Why do we not have power companies competing so that we as consumers may make a choice as to who we want to go with, rather than being stuck with a one-size-fits-all company, in our case here, APS?
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. So one of the things that I've talked about, and I've actually released a statement on, is that we need to have that conversation. We've had the conversation in the past. It died out. We need to have that conversation again. That is one of those issues where I have not taken a position for or against because I'd like to see the facts. What I do know is this. The current commission is looking at that. And Justin Olson, who's somebody I supported, is looking very seriously at that. I don't believe that there's an issue that's too big not to have at the Corporation Commission when it comes to those types of issues. I want to make sure that we do it the right way, because for me it's a very simple test. If it is good for Arizona ratepayers, then I'm for it. If it's bad for Arizonans, then I'm against it. I want to lower utility rates. I want to make sure that that's what's going to happen. Yes, sir.
If you take a look at the history of electricity in the state of Arizona, that particular issue came up several years ago. Competition was set up, it was ready to go, and it fell apart.
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, they actually set up the mechanism. There is a mechanism in place in order to do retail electric competition. There is some constitutional questions of whether or not that is a viable model. And I think, candidly, we need to take another look at that because, to your point, they did set up the mechanism to do it. Yes, sir.
I was wondering how you felt about it. Generally, I'm not a big, green energy kind of person or anything, but they were contemplating having the SRP have 90% or 90 megawatts of its electricity from biofuels, or at least a renewable energy of some kind.
which would be biofuels for us. But I really,
Microphones on biofuels now.
pardon?
Microphones on biofuels.
Yeah, that's true. But to me, it seemed like a good idea, because we have just a serious problem with our forests. I wouldn't mind paying $1.50 more on my bill if we had a plant out here that was using the biofuel fuels, and we were being able to clear out, thin down our forests, and for so many reasons, just, protection of the forests, our communities, our own lives, animals, having a better, watershed into our lakes and streams and aquifers. It just seems like it'd be a huge win-win if we could do that. What is your position on that?
Yeah, so my position, I can't speak to specifics, but I think that is a life safety issue. And I stand firmly on the side that would protect physical structures and life safety. With regards to Andy Tobin's plan, which was voted on, let me talk a little bit about that, okay? Because that's something that's already been voted on. I thought that was a very good approach. I thought it was a reasonable approach. I think that when you're looking at energy models in Arizona, we need an all of the above approach, right? So one of the problems with, as an example, 127 in the last election cycle was that it locked us into a specific energy source and said you can't move away from this source. Well, who here can tell me what the primary, what the cheapest form of electricity will be 20 years from now? No one can. And the reason you can't is because we don't know what's going to be invented or created, or what we'll be able to utilize in that time frame. The mandate that the commission passed previously for solar power was applauded by a lot of people. But we pay more for solar now under that plan than we would if we had bought it at a market rate. That's a problem, right? That's actually putting us at a market disadvantage for ratepayers. And so what I'm talking about specifically is that, look, we need an all-of-the-above approach. If you truly care about the environment, nuclear has to be an option. Nuclear is a great asset for Arizona, a great asset. We hear a lot about carbons in the air. We hear a lot about carbon neutral energy. Well, nuclear is a carbon neutral energy. That is exactly what we're looking for. But should we have other renewables? Absolutely. Arizona has a plethora of sunshine. We should be taking advantage of that. Some of these other things like biomass, those things need to be on the table, need to be seriously considered. And I hope to be someone who brings that topic back up at the commission.
Excuse me just a minute. What is the basket being passed for?
It's going to be for him.
Well, you have to fill out a form to go with it.
Oh, do we?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I passed the forms up there, so.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for doing that.
Was that a yes or no?
Yes or no on what?
Are you for the use of
I will be leading the issue of bringing it back to the table at the Corporation Commission.
And if it was on the table and they said, we can require this here, maybe your bill's gonna go up the butt.
So I cannot speak to a specific issue because I do not want to have to recuse myself. What I can tell you is that I want the issue brought back to the commission, which right now, it's not going to be brought back to the commission. I can't tell you that I'm going to vote for something or against something because I can't prejudge an issue and be allowed to vote on it in that situation.
All right, I understand.
What I can tell you is that I have said before, this is a conversation that needs to continue to be had. There are life safety issues here. The same way there are life safety issues on cutoffs in extreme weather. Have you all heard about what's happened in Maricopa County with the cutoffs in extreme weather?
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm a conservative Republican, but I'm telling you right now, and my mother had this problem. She on occasion couldn't make bills meet. She'd send us off to stay with friends so that we weren't in the house for a couple days while she was trying to make the electricity work again. It's a dangerous situation. And for a utility company to cut the power off on somebody who's on a fixed income, who pays 3/4 of the bill but doesn't pay the $51 that she doesn't have in her pocket, and then she dies because of a heat-related death, that is wrong. And it makes me angry, and it upsets me, and I plan on holding folks accountable, because that we cannot have at the commission.
Okay, I forgot to say, we do alternate sides of the
Oh, okay,
room.
sure.
So Jim just did it, so here's Glenn.
Jim, that did answer your question, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You said the magic word when you said Walt Blackman was on your side, because we've seen a lot of Republicans come through here, including No Show Little. And I was at several of the Corporation Commission hearings, 17 to be exact. We produced 9 criminal violations. We produced 5 checks made out from water company to Brooks Water Company that went into Jayco Oil account, a foreign company. Never taxed, never got put to account. We found $300,000 missing. Finally, after several months, we paid that out to one of our members as a dividend, but they forgot to report to commission. Then they sold Brooks Water Company to one of their nephews and didn't have to participate in the hearing. Our Republicans on that has not been well. And the Attorney General got one of them indicted. He got a hung jury. Another one resigned. But it's been an untrusting mess down there. And the only one we got down there now that really is significant is Burns. And he fought this dark money from the power company. But as far as I know, the power companies owned our Republican commissioners down there. And there was 31 families got $600 and $700 water bills at Mesa del Cabo, and they kicked over 100 kids out of their homes. Nobody said anything about it. Now, Arizona Public Service just had some bad rap down in Tonto Basin, and it took Tim Humphrey to get on them to find out that faulty water meters and bad maintenance on their stuff down there. Not the commissioner. Tim Humphrey didn't mind speaking up, but he didn't have authority. God bless him. Thank you for being a good, true conservative.
Thank you for that, I appreciate that.
Eric, we need
Yes.
some more empty.
Oh, let me do that now. I'm gonna set this down. Actually,
Sorry, that was me.
That wasn't.
That was me, because I,
Oh, that was,
there you go. Bill,
Who's missing him?
Bill, right over here.
Bill, I think needs him here. Okay, so we did a question over here. Now, keeping with the tradition, Bill. Yeah, hold on, 1 second, Bill.
Just want to make sure that if you put your $5 in here, it's got to have your sheet filled out as well. So don't put one without the other, okay?
That's right.
That's right. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm working on learning how to fill out the bottom half of the sheet, and I'll get to that in a minute. I want to say I moved here.
Thank you so much.
My father taught me that, as a young man, that utilities are a
There you
good
go.
investment, which I bought back at Northern State Power, which is now something else out of Minneapolis. When I moved down here, I had a choice of buying electricity from APS or APS. So obviously I bought APS. And they sent me a solicitation to buy stock, which I did. And I was very honored to be a part of Pinnacle West Corporation, which owns APS. And then they sent me letters telling me how I should conserve my use of my utilities because they would avoid having to build a new power supply, which I did. So I conserved. And after several years of conserving, they added something new on my bill. It was a fine for them not getting the money that they got because those of us who were asked to conserved. I will never forget that. Now, a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday, my power was off for, I think, an hour and a half or 2 hours. This is 2019, and we have people on the space station up there and going back and forth, you know, and APS can't figure out how to keep their power on them, and it's a little ruin. I understand that. So Well, I think we should consider bringing the water, what's the one down south? Something water?
SRP.
Huh?
SRP.
Yes. We should contact them and give them the opportunity to compete with APS for our business because we need to be treated like people who pay for something. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Eric, if they want to write a check for $5, who
Yes.
does it go to?
Please write the check to Sloan 2020, SLOAN 2020.
Sloan 2020.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead, sorry.
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you can't answer specific because this may be something that might hopefully come before the commission again, but I would just like to know your stance on smart meters and the lack of good evidence as far as the health risks that there are to them.
Right. So, here's what I can say about smart meters, and I've gotten this question all over the state.
Good.
Okay, this is something that people are really interested in. You know, for 70 years, they drive up to your house and check your meter, and then they decided that they were going to throw a smart meter on your house. And if you didn't want it, they were going to charge you $36, and if you did want it, they were going to charge you a fee to read it, because, you know, someone's got to sit in front of a computer. This goes to the point that I've made before, which is, you know, the fees that we get charged on our utilities are out of control. You know, almost 30% of my bill is fees. Fees for this and fees for that.
No competition, monopoly. No.
Yeah. And so what I want to do is take a hard look at those fees and make sure that that we're not being taken advantage of with that. I also don't believe that, you know, I think people should have the choice whether or not they want to have a smart meter, and they shouldn't be penalized if they don't want to have it. And you definitely should be penalized if you decide you do want to have it. I mean, you know, this is this fee thing is something that's happening all throughout government, right? Everywhere. $32 license fee. Okay, I'm taking master's classes at ASU, and a master's of public administration. 25% of my bill is fees. Why? Because that is the way the government has decided that they can take money out of our pockets, and it's not called a tax, they call it a fee. Well, let me tell you right now, your utility rate is a tax. You don't pay it, they turn off your utility. You don't have a choice. If you don't pay your taxes, Uncle Sam will eventually knock on your door. Right. Right. And so these fees are the exact same way. These fees are taxes. And I've been very clear about my position that we need to lower the utility rates and we need to lower the fees. I'm sorry, I thought I did answer the question, but what was the, what was the...
She asked if it was healthy for the smart.
I can't speak to that specific issue.
On smart meters, I did not get one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I am, they said it was only going to be a $5 increase in fees, but, you know, it's way over $30 now.
Right, it's almost
because
$30.
I chose not to have a smart meter.
Right.
The two things, how much does it take of biomass, whatever, to make electricity? How what do I want to say, viable is that? The other thing is Bill Gates' 25,000 acres that he bought west of Phoenix for a smart city. How can Arizona sustain that with the temperature, the water that we have? I mean, a lot of our water comes from Colorado and whatever, so how can that be something that the power company, and I know you're not there yet, but just maybe a comment, and if you can't comment on it, that's fine, I understand.
Yeah. I don't have the answer to the first question. Okay, very good. Oh, and on the second question, you know, I'm familiar, I've read the news articles, I think probably just like everybody else in that development, and I just, I don't know exactly where they're at in the process of developing that yet. I don't have any clue.
But 25,000 acres to be a smart city is going to require a lot of electricity, which is going to require a lot of water.
Right. And that I do know. And that's, I think, probably one of the things that's going to hold up that development. That would be my guess.
Well, it would be up to the Corporation Commission to...
Well, actually, that's actually in a municipality. And so a lot of that issue would be done at the municipal level.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me be very clear about this, too. It's the Corporation Commission does not oversee municipal utilities. Your city council oversees municipal utilities. I'm assuming everybody knew that, but I thought I'd just tell anybody anyways. Okay.
It's good you said that, because some people don't know that.
Yeah, some people don't. And sometimes I get questions. It's funny, I got a question about trash service in Prescott Valley. I was like, well, I'd love to help you, but we don't handle that at the Corp.com. Kel was in the room, no, the mayor was in the room, so I gave him that question.
Here's Brenda. Okay, Mike is not.
Gotta turn it on.
Mike is not on. Somebody turn it.
All righty.
Okay, we're in business.
Okay, so I was in the legislature for 8 years.
I recall.
Termed out in January. And as the chairman of the Agriculture, Water, and Lands Committee, I did a lot of work with water. And my understanding is that actually the Corporation Commission does a lot more work underwater in small water companies than people would ever imagine. And so I did work with them on a lot of different issues for small water companies. And up here in Payson, we had a lot of problems with small water companies. And one of the things that was seemed to be apparent in all of those is that they didn't set aside for maintenance and repair. And it may be something that the corporation could require of small water companies, that you provide the water, but whatever percentage is necessary because then you're protecting the public.
That's right.
And that's a health and safety.
That's right.
Because when a meter goes out, I'm in a water pump, and I worked with some different companies where that actually happened. The pumps went out, and Corporation Commission does have a program that will come in, and maybe you can explain a little bit of that for small water companies. I think that people up here would be of interest to them.
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking that question, because I do want to talk about some issues that are very specific to Payson and the Payson community.
Okay, thank you.
The specific to water companies. So the majority of the stuff that the Corporation Commission deals with is with water companies. There are small water companies all over Arizona. They're private water companies. Let me say that I think a lot of them do a good job. A lot of them, they will save their money for infrastructure, and they'll do the right thing. But there have been instances where a company has not done that, right? In that situation, the Corporation Commission needs to be right there on the spot. They need to make sure that we can get water back flowing, right? Get water going to those homes. That's a life safety issue, again. There are resources, both at the Department of Water Resources, and then the RUCO, and then the Corporation Commission, and at the federal government, also there are resources, okay? With regards to these smaller companies, I understand that rate increases cause a burden for them because it costs money to have a rate case, right?
That's right.
What we need to do is consolidate that process so that that case can be as streamlined as possible. As I said before, I work in economic development. There needs to be a process in place where that case is not a 300-page case.
Exactly. the Corporation Commission needs to design a special program for small water companies that is fast, streamlined, and inexpensive.
Right.
And so that these small water companies can actually, because what happens is they don't go, and they don't raise the rate, and then their water lines go out. Putting in new pipes, very expensive.
Right.
And
the commission does need to do some due diligence when we're talking about some of these companies to make sure that if they are telling us, they're telling the commission that they're setting aside this money, which a lot of them are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, from Missouri, it says, show me.
Right, the showing state, that's right.
Show it to me.
Trust but verify.
Trust but verify.
So we need to make sure that we're actually staying on top of folks.
But I think you can really help the small water companies, which would help their customers if the Corporation Commission were to streamline and make it a fast track.
Yeah, no.
Because as a small water company, they don't have that kind of money
Right.
to...
I mean, some of these...
They're not APS.
Yeah, they're serving 8 homes. Some of these water companies are literally serving 8 homes.
Absolutely right.
And so, we're not talking about a water company. They may have $30,000 in profit at the end of the year, right? That may be all they have, and so...
Right. So it needs to be relative to how many people they serve and the amount of revenues that they have available.
Now, the other thing I was going to say is, does anyone have a question about broadband? Because I want to talk a little bit about broadband and what...
Everybody here's got a question.
Oh, good. All right, well, let me tell you what I think. I believe the Corporation Commission, so, part of where I came from, my mother's family owned a cattle farm in Virginia, okay? So I grew up half in the city and I grew up half on a farm in a rural community. And the vast majority of my family now still lives in a rural community in Virginia. My wife and I live part-time in Prescott. When we're talking about economic development, we're talking about rural economic development, and we're talking about quality of life issues, broadband has to be the #1 issue that we take a look at. The commission, with certain former members, took an aggressive stance to go and get federal monies to get broadband into rural Arizona. I would be leading the charge on that. I think that is absolutely the most important thing we can do for Arizona as a whole, moving into the 21st century, is to make sure people have access to broadband. I know that there is a plan to bring redundancy into Payson. There's a plan to bring redundancy into communities in northern Arizona, Prescott and Kingman and Lake Havasu and Bullhead City. We need to get very aggressive about those things because we cannot be held back in the 21st century when we're talking about businesses where almost 70% of all business is conducted online now. We just can't let it happen. And so I will be very aggressive about that issue. Very.
Must be my turn.
Yes.
Okay, I want to throw something out to you. Because APS was the company that was going to upgrade the Cholla power plant in order to burn the slash to clear the forest, and it was maybe going to cost in the ballpark of $4 extra a month for their customers. And yet it's SRP's watershed that needs to be protected. One of the things that they did in New Mexico was they broke up the Corporation Commission and made it a Public Utilities Commission that then took people like SRP that it's a quasi-governmental, not a private company, and that's why it's not regulated by the Corporation Commission. And yet, in order to get their forest cleared in New Mexico, they spread the cost of their power plants and over all of the utilities, including water, solar, nuclear, and electricity, natural gas, so that everybody paid and everybody's bill went up only less than $1. So is that something that, of course, maybe you can't comment on that, but if the citizens were to petition, I don't know whether the legislature could make that change to the Corporation Commission since it's a standalone. They'd have to change the Constitution to do that. Okay, so, but it seems really kind of like a smart move to me when the people down in Maricopa County have no idea how important thinning the forest is up here to their water. So if you can comment on some way about that.
Well, let me say that Brenda's right. There are constitutional issues there. The commission is constrained by constitutional boundaries, and candidly, I'm very happy about that. I think more of government should probably be constrained the way the commission is. I think that what we need to do at the commission is take a broad look at what is happening across the United States and look at communities who are doing things differently than we are and see if those are resulting in the outcomes that we want here in Arizona, right? We need to have a serious conversation in this state, not just at the commission level. We need to have a serious conversation in the state, at the legislature and at the governor's office about forest health and what we're going to do about protecting people's lives and structures. There's a fire burning right now, 21,000 acres north of Prescott. There was a fire just north of Flagstaff, which they said was the worst case scenario, right? 2 miles from city center, it was burning. I mean, every fire asset in the state was there, right? What I know is that we need to have a comprehensive approach to this, and I want the commission to be part of that comprehensive approach. You can't just get on the Corporation Commission and sit back and say, well, we're just in charge of utility rates and, everybody else can do their thing. No, I think if you get elected by the people of Arizona, you've got a responsibility to say, hey, we want to be part of the solution, and it needs to be a comprehensive solution, so let's have everybody at the table to get this thing done.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Just a comment on that museum fire.
Yes.
Brenda and I and several other people that belong to this group that just don't happen to be here today, went to the Forest Health Symposium that they had about a month ago here at Gila Community College. And they were talking about the museum fire because it was burning right at that time. And one of the reasons that museum fire got so out of control was that it had been thinned wonderfully. But all the slash piles were in a teepee getting ready for the monsoons to come so they could burn those slash piles. And so the slash piles, set the grounds on fire, whereas if they had been removed, if they had been able to be hauled off to Cholla power plant and being burned for electricity, that would have been a lovely, natural, wonderfully beneficial fire. Now they have people, because I was up at Coconino County at the fair, and they were talking about, because of that seared land, they are mudslides and tons of people having to do the sandbags all over there, because if we have a really heavy monsoon up there, then flooding, like in the Schultz fire that they had up there, was so bad that it killed a little girl because of the massive runoff, and lots of more damage from the runoff, in billions of dollars, millions of dollars, whatever. So it's a serious issue. So.
Well, I do want to say this, and it was alluded to before. Walt Blackman is my campaign chairman. I have been endorsed by the mayor, Tom Morrissey. I've been endorsed by the mayor of Bullhead City. I've been endorsed by several state legislators from around the state. I'd be happy to stay after and give you their names if you'd like, but I'd better not to do a roll call here at the legislature. But these are issues that I have told them that they need to absolutely take an aggressive stance on in the next legislative session. And I plan to continue to tell my friends who support me and who I support that we have got to take an aggressive stance on these issues. And I think you know where Walt Blackman stands, and I can tell you right now, he and I agree.
Excuse me.
Good to see you. No, it's all right. Come on in. Yeah, come on over.
Who wants it? Here.
Where's the other
Would you
one?
like to take the mic and see if there's any more? I have to step out for just a minute.
Who's that lady kissing the speaker?
That's Chris Morrissey, the mayor's.
Oh.
That's Chris Morrissey, the mayor's wife. She has
Different hat tonight, okay.
She's running the Trump campaign up here. Let me tell you something. We got a tough election ahead of us, ladies and gentlemen. Do not for 1 second even remotely believe that this state is in the bag for Donald Trump, or that it's in the bag for any Republican. Because the president won by 3% in the last election, and the Democrats have figured out that they can spend millions and millions of dollars here and get people who aren't involved to vote for them. Right? And vote totals are going up on both sides. And the reason is because both parties are actively engaging voters. And that's a good thing. But there were 200,000 voters in Arizona who voted in the presidential question but didn't vote in the midterm across the state. And if we're going to win in Arizona, it is going to happen outside of Maricopa County. We need big voter turnouts in Gila County. I think 77% last time. We got to get over 80%. That's what we got to do. It has to happen. So thank you all very much for what you're doing to drive out that voter turnout.
I would like for you to let everybody know what the responsibilities are for the Corporation Commission.
Sure. So the Corporation Commission covers a variety of areas. The one that people are most familiar with are the utilities, right? But we also cover pipeline safety, railroad safety, financial investment mechanisms to make sure that there are no crimes being committed. Those are the things that are really very important. I mean, the financial investment division, as an example, that oversees making sure people aren't getting swindled in these business deals. We also do business registration at the Corporation Commission, which is something that's important to me. You know, we should have 24-hour turnaround service at the Corporation Commission for anybody who wants to start a new business at the Commission. We are in the 21st century, as I said before. I think that that's very important. A state like Delaware can have that. I think we need to look at that and get that done at the Commission. But we need to make sure, too, that we're actively helping local law enforcement to aggressively go after people who try to defraud other people out of their money. The Commission has done a good job of that. We need to continue to do a good job of that. Yes, sir.
In North Dakota, that function is done by a group called the PUC, Public Utility Commission, which is what they do. They regulate public utilities.
Yeah.
Now, corporations may be regulated by the Corporation Commission, but it certainly isn't much of a function. You know, corporations are pretty big, and I think it's a misnomer. I mean, you're not going to change it, but I did make a comment. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, here, Charlie.
Bring the mic.
Oh, we got another one here. You got mics coming from every direction. When Charlie speaks, people listen. Let me tell you, it's like Idiot Hut.
I spent almost 40 years at Salt River Project, and it's a quasi-municipality rather than
that's true.
corporation.
Governmental entity.
Municipality. That's the quote. That's the official name.
That's true.
And we watched in the early years when APS pushed their solar. They found every little advantage to where you could get the money and how you could do it. And they got everybody in, and they said, "Oh, you guys are a burden. We're going to raise your utility rates and make you pay." We've always said the Salt River Project had a much higher grade of electricity than APS did. There were some arguments to that.
I can't speak to that either. I can't talk about that.
But my main point is that people are not aware of the water issue in this state. The valley ignores it. When I hired on in 1964, the deepest wells in Phoenix was less than 400 feet. When I retired, and a little over after the end of 2003, they were over a half mile deep. That bottom of that aquifer is down there someplace. And when they hit it, they're going to be in trouble. And nobody in the valley, none of the municipalities are acting like there's any problem with water. And our wells at Salt River Project are going dry one after another. And somebody's got to wake these people up. This is a desert.
Well, one of the things I tell folks is, SRP has an elected board. Some of these questions need to be posed to the elected board members at SRP, right? Secondly, you're totally right. They're a big governmental entity, municipality. I mean, they're their own behemoth.
Yep.
But they do come in front of the commission for line sitting, right? And it's very important that we understand that, that's an important issue. That line sitting is an important issue for rural communities because, where power lines go will determine on how a community grows, right? And so that's something we need to be very conscientious of as we move forward. Yes, sir.
I think to piggyback on Charlie's a little bit about the water.
Sure.
We're going to have water problems if we don't manage our forests. Our forests are sucking our groundwater dry. We got to get those down so that we can get the lakes, aquifers, and that refilled up. I mean, that's all part of it.
We need enough trees to protect the runoff too, so we don't fill
Yeah.
our reservoirs. So it's a balancing.
And it really is a balancing act, right? And look, I mean,
And the
this.
Forest Service has not done it justice for years.
No, they haven't.
Completely. Did you shut it off?
I'm sorry.
Turn the mic
You
off.
do that every time, don't you? One of the things, and when this man is elected,
Thank you.
don't beat him up because he can't get a hold of the electric problem, okay? We've already gone and heard Salt River Project is a government, quasi-municipality, okay? They're a governmental entity. They were formed for the water, and the electric ended up being an after-market type affair. Arizona Public Service is a publicly traded, stockholder-owned corporation. Tucson Electric Power is a stockholder-owned electric corporation. Navapache is a cooperative. Everybody in the area buys into it. Across this state, there is such a mix of different types of corporations that the Corporation Commission has to take into account in what they are doing, how they can do it, and if you want to have if you want to have competition in this state, everybody has to be on the same playing board. And that's not what you have. It does not exist.
You're spot on. There's nothing for me to add to that.
Do we have any more?
We've got a little battle here between APS and former SRP employees. You guys want to stand on chairs and sing your alma mater?
Yeah.
All right. There you go. That's good. That's on videotape. Someone's going to make a commercial out of that. Who else? What do we got?
Okay, anybody else have any other questions?
Okay, well, let me just close with this. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me tonight. I've gotten to spend a lot of time in Payson in the last 3 months especially. I was here for the rodeo parade. I've been here for the
Day.
Reagan Day dinner, yes, yeah, Reagan Day dinner. Yeah, set at your table. And I just want to say, you know, I've always felt very welcomed here, and I just wanted you all to know that I really appreciate that. And I appreciate that, you know, I go all over Arizona, and it's a special place to be received in. And so I just want to thank you all for that.
I want you to remember something. We have the world's boldest continuous road.
I'll make sure to tell the folks in Prescott that. Yeah. Bring that up at the next Chamber of Commerce meeting.